Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. Hosted by the editors of Writer's Digest, this monthly podcast features conversations with writing and publishing experts whose insights will help ignite your creative vision, hone your skills, build your platform, and get your work out into the world.
Hello everyone, I am Michael Woodson, and welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. At some point, either on this podcast or our magazine or on the website, you've probably heard us say, read outside of your preferred genre as writing advice, but it's also just really good practice to do as readers, if for no other reason than to exemplify that there really is something for everyone, no matter the genre. And I think a genre that exemplifies this really well is horror, because understandably, there's going to be stuff in horror that just isn't going to be for everyone. Take me, for example. I don't love body horror. I don't love reading about torture or animal cruelty or anything visceral in that way. But I do love a good ghost story, and I love a really intense atmosphere. And these kinds of stories, ghostly atmospheric stories, really offer me what I'm looking for when I'm looking for something with like a spooky vibe without really upsetting my stomach. Gothic fiction is one of my favorite subgenres, and today I'm chatting with author Carson Faust, whose debut Southern Gothic novel, If the Dead Belong Here, is currently available. Carson and I talk about the qualities of writing Southern Gothic novels, where the Gothic novel stands within the overarching horror genre, and so much more. So, without further ado, Writer's Digest presents Carson Faust. Carson, thank you so much for joining me today. If you don't mind, giving our listeners a little bit of information about yourself and your book, If the Dead Belong Here.
Cool. Hi, I'm Carson Faust. I am Two-Spirit. I'm an enrolled member of the Eddystone Natchez-Coosa tribe of South Carolina. If the Dead Belong Here is my first book, and I'm just excited to talk about it. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Your first book, is it your first? It's your first published book. I would imagine it's not the first book you've written, right?
It is the first book I've written.
Really?
And yes,
wow.
It was initially much shorter, and it was a thesis for a graduate program I was
Interesting.
in. It's very literally the first thing I finished.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't a short story.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you actually about your short work. I love short stories. I am a short story writer myself and fledgling hopeful novelist one day. We'll see. But
Yep.
I was wondering how the process differs for you with writing a book versus writing a short story.
I actually think of short stories as closer to poems, which I do like. I always joke that I like to write poetry only when I'm super miserable. So I don't really write a lot of poetry anymore, thankfully. But to me, they're just so self-contained and usually the emotions are more on fire. There aren't a lot of slow burn short stories that I'm
totally
interested in. So to me, it's the urgency with which narrative and image comes to the page with a short story is much more similar to how I think of poetry, rapid fire emotion kind of that aspect.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And in contrast to If the Dead Belong Here is such a slow burn, which is my bread and butter completely. I'm really excited to talk about this. I read this book over the summer, and it made me delightfully impatient for crisp fall air and early shadows, and the atmosphere around this book is just so palpable. And atmosphere is sort of a hallmark of Gothic fiction, and in particular Southern Gothic fiction. And I'm just wondering, as we start talking about this book, how did you go about constructing the feeling of this story?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of place, obviously it's super important.
Yes,
it's a novel about kind of returning and also finding who you are, regardless of where you're born. One of the tensions in both the origin of me writing the book, but also that the characters face in the novel itself is my literal family. We have roots in South Carolina. That's where my grandma on my dad's side was born. And she had to move away from there very young. She was the last of 11 siblings, and her parents died when she was very young. So she moved in with family, South Carolina to Wisconsin. They're like placed there for, I think, military service. So she grew up there, which led to my father and me being born there. So there's this like distinct, like, you know, we're from where we're from in terms of like I'm very Midwestern and the way I move through the world. But like when I returned to South Carolina as an adult, I was like, this like just feels right. It like feels like a home in some ways.
Wow.
So that idea that like both places are home
Yeah.
in their own way. And like if we're talking about Gothic fiction, like okay, in what ways is Wisconsin a haunted house, and in what ways is South Carolina a haunted house or haunted home? And I think you kind of have to like, you really have to like love or feel connected to a place to like capture it or even want to capture it in any way, whether it be a photo or a book or whatever. So like that was the first kind of area for me to focus on. It's like what parts of these places do I adore? Which parts of these places am I critical of? Like how do those things interact with one another? And like finding drama in the inanimate is like very important to like how I try to present work on the page, I guess. Like a setting isn't just like, it's not a background. It is like it leads directly into the action of the piece.
Absolutely.
I tried to think about that as I was, putzing around writing a novel.
Yeah. It's interesting you say you have to have love for a place to write about it. I think you're right, because for years I really avoided writing where I'm from. I think in part because I had like a love-hate relationship with it, and I'm born and raised in where I live now. And this feeling of it's not an interesting enough place, people won't be interested in reading about it. And until I sort of let that go, my writing got so much better because I have grown to really love it here. And as you say, like to feel allowed to be critical of things that I'm critical about it doesn't mean I don't love it. And that comes through more in my writing. I think it's really true. And I love what you say about like the drama of inanimate objects. Like, yes, that's so true.
Listen, we live for the drama. We can't help it.
Of course, yeah. We were talking about, well, I don't know. We were talking about our star signs before.
Absolutely.
But what's interesting too about the atmosphere in this book is that it really comes through in ways more than just what you're doing with the setting. It also comes through in how the characters like describe how things feel or sound to them. And there's a part, I have a book, if I can find this fast enough. There's a moment when, we'll get to who these characters are in a minute, but Nadine, her mother describes hearing these whispers as the running water sound of their voices. And that is like deeply atmospheric, and it's nothing tangible, but it's very visual. And I don't really have a question there. I just think that like there's so much atmosphere going on outside of like the literal atmosphere of the story.
Well, thank you. And that to me is like what I think fiction, like one of the only things fiction can do better / at all that other mediums can't, is like really insert itself into these characters' heads. Like I used to think of writing as like, okay, how can I visually represent like what's in my mind's eye? That was how I wrote for a long time. And then the longer I worked at it, I was like, I'm actually much more interested in like how this person is reacting to
interesting
the sense, their senses. And that to me, like, so many of these characters are like really deep down in themselves, whether it be sadness or repression or just like not knowing who they are. Like, how do you get at describing someone's world when they're not quite sure how they move through it? Like that was
for sure
an interest of mine in many of these folks who are on the page.
Yeah, for sure. Did you always set out to write a Southern Gothic novel, or did the genre sort of reveal itself in the writing process?
I mean, it's a funny question because like I think all of my writing in some way is like gothic in sensibility.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I am just naturally like, I like very much grew up like a mall goth, like
Mm-hmm.
so like it's like you know, why am I listening to like Evanescence at the ripe age of 10? I'm not sure, but it's happening. So like it was just built in, and then
Yeah,
like,
just innate.
yeah, it just comes out that way. Like
Yeah.
my speaking of, we brought the zodiac, so my sun and my Mercury, so like the way I move through the world and the way I communicate are both in the 8th house, which is this house of, it's like where rebirth and death, like all those things, I'm very comfortable with them, which means
Yeah.
I make it everybody else's problem. So, so yeah, definitely just built in. Can't,
Really.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't fight what feels natural.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love Gothic novels and I love Southern Gothic novels. And I think that what's interesting about them is that I believe that they're really hard to describe, or I should say they're hard to put into a synopsis, like by design, because they're always going to be like more than what they're quote unquote about. And which I guess is true for all fiction, but I think in particular, Gothic fiction, Southern Gothic fiction, even like magical realism a lot of the time, uh, is unsummarizable in the best possible way because you can tell me what it's about, like, sure, but you really can't prepare someone for the way like reading these books feels. And I'm just wondering if the visceral quality of the reading experience was something that you were considering during the writing process.
See, I don't think so. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think um, what I try to lean into most is like writing is where I go to like feel like my natural state,
Mm-hmm.
which based on what I like to write, let's not go into that. But I think there's this element of like I don't know. I'm more interested in like the accuracy of
Yeah.
the feeling of these folks than I am like evoking a mood. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in um, yeah, I guess like presenting how these situations, like, you know, a missing sister, a missing daughter, like
Mm-hmm.
how might those feel, and how might like those inciting incidents like ripple into the past. Like obviously this is a
Right.
novel that spans like the present moment is 1996, and then it goes back to like
Right.
1899. So um, containing all of like I I'm a big believer in like inherited history. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody who
Oh yeah.
exists, like we like of course I have my own direct history, but like I also like have a strong sense that I inherit like whether they be dreams, whether they be feelings. I
Mm-hmm.
inherit a lot of things from my grandma, from
Mm-hmm.
my aunts and uncles, from my father, and I just think like that's how I view these characters too. It's like, yes, of course, they're dealing with like incredibly intense circumstances in the present,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like historically speaking, like this family's like descendants like
Yeah.
survived the very, very harsh things as well. So like
Yes.
this is completely possible. And that like horror as a vehicle for a possibility is like something I've been thinking about a lot lately of like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a way of bringing the past directly to the page. It's a way of
Yeah.
people interact directly with their family members through like whether they be deceased, whether they be um yeah, there are just like so many layers that you can peel back by
Totally.
playing the genre in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of peeling in this. Certainly, you mentioned characters. I was going to ask you this later, but I'll just get to it now because it's this book spans so much time. Yeah, we're talking centuries, and there are so many characters, and I'm just curious, like, how did you manage so many characters and timelines in the writing process?
Not well.
Sure.
There were
See, I love hearing that.
there were initially more.
I was going to ask you that.
There were definitely more. And
Yes.
I think like as the drafting process went on, it just like certain characters, while they felt very real to me,
Mhm.
that doesn't always mean they need to like live in this specific story. Like
Totally.
One of my mentors, Mona Susan Power, she like, we think of writing very similarly in that like, these characters, like they just come and visit and they like tell us their
That's
stories.
interesting.
And it's not so much like, I don't feel that I have a whole lot of control
Right.
over these people or like the narrative that happens. Like I know there are people who can like plot the hell out of anything, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't work.
It's not me.
I have to listen.
Yeah.
Like writing is an exercise in listening, and it's.
Hmm.
I don't think I necessarily, in the literal sense, like create these stories in any way. I think they're given to me. So, like that's very woo woo. I'm aware, but it's also like it makes it extra difficult to kind of part with those characters, I guess.
Oh, sure.
Like, and who they'll come back. They'll come back for something else.
Totally.
I'm fully aware.
Yeah.
But I also like, it makes editing with me probably more challenging than with others.
It's interesting you say that, though. I was going to ask you about how many darlings were killed in the making of this book, but also if at any point, well, I would ask you, like, who do you consider the main character? Because I believe I think the beating heart of this book. Oh gosh, see, that's a hard question to answer. I thought for sure I was going to say Nadine and her sister, but I'm wondering for you, like, did you ever feel compelled to have a different character be sort of like the most linear storyline in this book?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tricky question.
I know, and I didn't want to spoil anything, so I didn't want to.
You're not going to trust it.
Okay.
You're totally in line. But I think like I would agree that like Nadine is the like propulsive element. I do think like she is the one who like is most willing to take action, and she's also like the character who kind of exists between all of these worlds of like she's like between generations of like her great aunt Rosebud, who is like a knowledge holder for her, and like she's also like the caretaker for her mother in a lot of ways. So she kind of like exists in this world where she is like a translator almost. So that lends her perspective to like the most mobility. In previous drafts of the novel, I remember a mentor, Diana, who I adore. She was like, "Man, like Aida is just like eating this entire book alive," and I was like, "That's really." If I were to like the character who like feels most like my worldview, almost is definitely Aida. Like just like I always joke that like melancholy is my baseline. So it's like living into her as a character was like second nature to me. And it was actually like Nadine eventually became this challenger of Aida, and like again, she is the one who is like taking the most action. In the traditional sense. I mean, there are things that Aida does throughout the narrative that like she believes are the correct thing to do, and it's not
it's true.
But it's like it's I think reality misfires around people who are that set into like one specific emotion.
Okay, so that's interesting. That sort of segues perfectly into my next question of this idea of just writing flawed characters, and these are like incredibly flawed people, and the reader must root for them, and it really could go either way. Like you could either just be fed up with them, or it becomes sort of a heartbreaking element of their character. And I'm just wondering, like, what was your experience writing imperfect people that the reader still needed to root for?
It's tricky. I mean, to me, like they're all so like lovable in their own way. Like I think in the same way that everyone is often frustrated by their own family. It's like I'm really frustrated that these characters like can't all like there are factions that like team up to like, accomplish goals, all that of course. But it's like the fact that it's not the impulse to to move through that together
Mm-hmm.
is often the frustration and the various ways people like fracture their connections.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
But don't break necessarily, you
exactly,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of the where it's like even in the most dire circumstances, all of these characters are like seeking connection. They're all doing it like
Yeah.
kind of wrong.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
no one's
Yeah, it's
doing it
true.
right. But like, and I don't know. I think of like um, I'm like if you can't tell, like I'm a huge like horror like nerd,
You're right.
and I've been really ruminating on this idea of like that like cliche of like the final girl. Of
Mm-hmm.
like it's such a like a hyper individualistic, very like Western worldview of like, oh, like if you persist through all this horror, then you can make it to the end and you'll be
Mm-hmm.
alive. And it's like, to me, like in this book in particular, I'm interested in like survival as like a collective action more than
Mm.
like that hyper individualistic, like one
Wow.
person will survive aspect. It's like, I think the characters that are most successful in
Hmm.
getting closer to what they want are the ones who find one another, support each other, and like build on each other's knowledge. Like none
Yeah.
of them agree, which is actually like the strength. Or like none of them are
Yeah.
like exactly the same in how they think about the world, but it's all those perspectives coming together that allow for some version of as close to success as one can get in this incredibly flawed little world that we have.
Yeah.
But
My managing editor is also Mariah Richard. Love you. She
yeah, right.
loves horror as well.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you some of your favorite horror, anything.
Oh, well, it depends on like, there's a big spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's this super, like, I think the perfect, like, kind of campy horror that's also like, I love Skeleton Key
No
with,
way.
I love it so much. It's like the perfect amount of like cheese and the perfect
Yes.
amount of like historical context. And it's like, it's just like, it's a great like entry level horror film. Like
Totally.
I can watch it with my parents without them getting mad at me for gore or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I recently watched Weapons three
I
times
saw
in
Weapons.
theaters. Like
Oh,
uh,
so good.
if you and like you'll have seen the movie by now, all of you, I'm sure it'll be out of theaters by the time this
That's
comes
true.
out. Like
Yeah.
if you put like a campy witch as your antagonist, I'm gonna eat that up. It's done. It's done. Like what else do we need?
You're gonna eat that up, and
Yeah,
she
and
might.
then and she'll eat
Yeah.
my life force. It's fine. She deserves it. She's
Yeah,
good
that
for
was
it.
incredible. That was we saw Weapons, and we had seen Barbarian like 2 weeks before just by happenstance. And I didn't knew nothing about Barbarian, and that was I know
Perfect.
the ending is really controversial, but I loved the ending.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah,
None
I think it's perfect.
like like bar for bar, barbarian and weapons are both like I don't like. It's I appreciate like the way structure works in both those
Yeah, for
films too.
sure.
It's like you're like I remember being so like jarred and shocked in a good way the first time I saw
Yes.
Barbarian straight through. I
Oh,
was like,
shocked.
oh, love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that feeling. Yeah. And you can't like bottle it up. Like I wish like I was just like our friends who are big horror fans, they were like, "You're coming over to watch Barbarian because we want to see your reaction." And in my head I was like, and I do like horror and I like scary stuff, but I'm also a scaredy cat. So I told them, I was like, what comes out of my mouth is our little secret, okay? Like let me have my reaction. And it wasn't that. It was, I mean, it was jumpy, but it was,
Yeah.
they wanted just to see the reaction to that exactly, like the structure of it and the way it ends and how you truly don't expect what's coming. And then to I guess tie it back a little bit to your book, and I don't want to talk about the ending, but I was surprised by the ending in a way that like people wrestle with like quote unquote unsatisfactory endings, but those are my favorite kind of endings because they just like drip with reality for me. Like, you know, like it like what's the phrase? The most likely answer is probably the right one. It's like, well, the human in me was optimistic for one ending, and then it
Mhm.
wasn't given to me, and it felt almost more satisfying in that way.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I continue through writing more books, I don't think people will come to me for optimism.
Sure.
Like so, like, and not to say like I think in terms of the ending and both, I think also the book as a whole, like
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of feedback from certain types of people who find it like, including like editors who passed on it, like they were like, I
Mm.
don't know if I can spend this much time with like a story that's this bleak. And I was like, I actually like I did set out to like put out a balanced what I thought was a balanced story. Like I
Yeah.
do think like the folks who saw the book as I also see it are the ones who can recognize where the pieces of hope are. Like I don't think there's a bunch of
Totally.
them, but I think the glimmers that are there are important. Like I
Yeah.
don't, you know, if the dead belong here is not a beach read. like,
Right.
like, or if
For
it is,
some.
I don't know what
Yeah.
kind of like maybe like a black sand beach at night. But,
Or like the Dune beach that's in black and white or whatever, or the
exactly,
Dune
yeah,
planet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just a bunch of sandworms. You know, like you never know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. It's fine. So there's, so I don't know. I do think that like when it's, you know, we talked a bit about like poetry, we talked a bit about a short
Right.
story, and it's like I do think that like my novel is a closer sibling to like a short story
Mm-hmm.
in construction
Mm-hmm.
perhaps than like a traditional like 3 act structure. I think I
Sure.
tried my best to like follow
Mm-hmm.
as best I could some sort of structure, and thank
Sure.
you to my agent Annie for like helping me do that.
Mm.
Because yeah, initially it was even more like amorphous than
Mm.
I think it's actually quite linear now, which is it's a fun little discovery.
Yeah.
But it was not like that initially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about process. Like,
Mm.
how long did it take you, I guess, to write this book, and how long, sort of, from idea to written manuscript to publication, are we looking at?
Mhm. Yeah. So I wrote a 14-page short story in fall of 2016.
Oh, wow.
And then my mentor Diana, who I mentioned earlier, I brought to workshop, and she was like, "Well, Carson, is this a short story or part of a longer piece?" And I was like, "I don't know. I have no idea." And she was like, "Well, the only correct answer is that it's part of a longer piece."
Interesting.
So I then worked with her over the course of 2 more years to make it into a longer piece.
Wow.
And it took me, let's see, like there was a draft of it that was much shorter, like but complete in some sense by 2019. And then it wasn't until I kind of began my partnership with my current agent,
Mm.
Andy, and we got it to like actually feasibly submittable
Interesting.
to editors and publishers. And then, yeah, then I am so thrilled to have like landed with Ibrahim, my editor at Viking,
Mm.
and I worked with him from kind of 2023 on to get to where it is now, and
Wow.
it really is like I I can't imagine a team that kind of sees the work better than
Mm.
the folks that I have, and then I also keep saying like I I don't think anyone can ever set out to write a perfect book, but it is as good of a first book as I can put into the
Mm.
world. Like, yeah, it's
What
not
a great
perfect, but
feeling.
it's it feels true to like the folks who showed up in my head. Like I feel like I
Absolutely.
got as close as I could, and that to me feels like a relief.
Yeah. Well, I don't think art is supposed to be perfect.
You
Like,
know, what does
you
that mean?
know,
AI
yeah. I mean,
can do that.
yeah, exactly. Oh, yes, exactly. Yes. I guess, like, really, I'm just curious if you have, to sort of wrap this up, like, what advice do you have for, I like that you say, sort of, you live in this, um, maybe nebulous world of like, I sometimes I am a poet, sometimes I'm a short story writer, sometimes I'm a novelist. Um, And I'm just wondering, like, what advice do you have for other writers who do feel that way? And
Hmm.
in feeling that way, it can sometimes feel like I'm not producing anything particularly successful because I can't focus on any one thing. How do I navigate sort of like switching gears? And then also advice for authors who are interested in writing sort of Southern Gothic
Hmm.
work.
I mean, the first piece of advice is like in whatever genre, and this is, believe me when I tell you, I am paraphrasing my mentor Diana, who I've mentioned. Her last name is Joseph. She's lovely, Diana Joseph. but my main piece of advice is find work that you love in whatever
Mm,
genre, whether it be poetry, short story, and it's not even just read it. Like her advice to me was type it out word for word. Like
oh
see how
wow,
the words feel as you type them out. It also like slows you way down.
that's true.
It like forces you to like pay really close attention to like punctuation, to like
Hmm.
what's happening. It. I think often there can be this like I'm in such a hurry to produce, like you say, that
Yeah,
like you're not actually listening to
yeah,
what your characters want or what it is you're going for. And I think I said early on, like creating anything, but especially writing, is about listening. Like if you're not
hmm,
listening to the world around you and like processing it in any meaningful way, like of course you're not going to produce anything. like I don't
right.
know. So that to me is like the first part of it. And then when it comes to like the Southern Gothic aspect, if that's like of interest, I think I similar advice to earlier. I'm like just like in whatever place you want to write your Gothic
Mm-hmm.
fiction, like you have to love it, even if it's like
Hmm.
I don't know, like some of the memories I have even from like growing up in Wisconsin. It's like I loved sitting in like the empty like local grocery store parking lot at like 10
Hmm.
p.m. and like you know just chatting with friends. It's like
Yeah.
nothing necessarily needs to happen, and nothing necessarily needs to feel like a revelation. Sometimes it's like the connection to place, the connection between people, like that is the answer to finding atmosphere. Like
Mm.
you can make anywhere terrifying, like
It's
really,
true.
especially here. We got plenty of
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. Yeah.
so, I guess that would be. Advice is like not only connection to like other folks' craft, but like
Hmm.
craft is not something that happens when you shut the world out and like
Right.
you emerge from your chrysalis a savant. Like it happens when you engage meaningfully with the world in
Mm.
whatever way feels more correct to you. So that might be the best shot I have at advice. I don't know
Yeah.
anything. Don't ask.
Yeah. I know it's so hard because I mean, uh, I think you're right, especially about like studying people you love. And um, I've recently been doing that with an author who I adored. I've adored for years. And I have always aspired to write like this person, but I've never really like done the work to actually be like, well, what are they doing right? Like, what are they that you feel is right? And I've been reading her sort of backlist in preparation for her new book and really studying it. And I can feel it sort of like becoming part of my writerly DNA right now, which is a really fun feeling. Um, and yeah, I think it's really, I love the idea of like taking something I loved and actually typing it out is a great idea. Cause you're right. It does slow us down, like in a
So
really
fun.
helpful way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would also say, and this is like a different writer's advice, Alejandra Heredia, we were texting the other month. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm like reading all of Jean Rice's work, like in the order it was published." I was like, "That's genius. Why have I never done that before with anyone?" Because spite's a big motivator, and when people tell me I didn't successfully write a Southern or a Gothic story, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'll just read Shirley Jackson, like from
Totally.
debut to her last novel, and then I'll figure it out. Don't
Yeah.
worry, the
And
next one will be
like, if you're
better.
going to read anyone, I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. And like talk about a woman who like knew how to take risk. It's like some of those,
totally
some of her very early work. I'm like, this is like out there. I'm like,
bananas.
and she was a best. She
Yeah.
was she'd love for herself. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
she was doing a lot of like very interesting on a like a craft and narrative level stuff.
Totally.
Man, like let's
Yeah.
go. I have a lot to
Absolutely.
learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Carson, this has been so lovely. I cannot recommend this book more. If you want people to find you online, where could they find you?
Oh man. Okay, so I have Instagram, my name backwards, not backwards, it's a little bit, but like Faust Carson. And then I have carsonfaust.com if you just want the writer stuff. You don't want any of
Great.
my pictures of trees. But, and then I am very like Blue Sky is like a ghost town, but I'm
Sure.
sure I'm just Carson Faust on there.
Some.
But I'll do
Great.
my best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carson.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for listening to Writer's Digest Presents. Visit us online at writersdigest.com and make sure to follow us on social media at Writer's Digest for daily updates on articles, online courses, live events, and more. See you next time.